Hello and welcome to another episode of the JRE review. Today I am reviewing Joe's conversation with Colin O'Brady for podcast 1244. Now, if you've never heard of Colin O'Brady before, which I hadn't before this podcast, he is one extraordinary guy. Bit of a backstory on him. So he was a college swimmer. He went to Thailand and burned himself very badly in an accident and was told that he wouldn't be able to walk again. A lot of different types of things the doctors will say just to make you miserable and put you off life. But supposedly he was up against it. He had some real challenges, and he decided, thanks to some help and positivity from his mother, that he would not only get up again and start moving, but he'd also go and win triathlon and then climb Mount Everest and go on to do some really incredible things. This guy is truly inspirational, and the conversation that he had with Joe is one of those ones where if you're kind of in a rut or a little down on yourself or a little frustrated, it's definitely one of those conversations that's going to make you say, hell yeah, let's do this. Let's get up and go. So I love those. You know, they're super inspiring. It's a great example of the inspiration that Joe's podcast has for people. But anyway, let's get started with the review. Welcome to the Joe Rogan Experience Review, where each week I review every single episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. What more do you want? So like I said, it was a very positive conversation. It really was. And you see where Colin is kind of getting his strength from is just from all the type of positive energy and thinking that he has trained himself to have. So the reason he was on Rogan's podcast is because he recently walked all the way across Antarctica on his own for 54 days, pulling a sled that weighed like 350 pounds. It was mostly food for him, and he was completely on his own. Now, he had like a sat-nav phone, some other things, but it was basically a challenge that had never been done before, and it sounded truly miserable, to be honest, and incredibly difficult. It's unbelievable to me that somebody could do it. Just the isolation alone, being alone that much, and knowing that really any day something could happen that would really fuck you over and kill you, right? I mean, the conditions down there are just so brutal that at any minute, you know, a storm could come in or what have you, and you're in big trouble. I don't think there's any nice times to be traveling across Antarctica, but it's these things, these stories, when you hear people doing these incredible things, it does kind of drive you to think, you know what, there are some difficult shit that I have to do, but maybe I can do it, you know? And then when you hear that, in a sense, these people are like, they may have some natural gifts, right? Athletics and all the rest of it, but a lot of it is just a determination, willpower, strength, planning, and execution, you know, which obviously all sounds easier than it is to kind of pull off, but it's there's really nothing superhuman about the people that do a lot of this stuff. It's just that they're getting out there and doing it. And I think that's an important message for a lot of people to have and to hear, which I think is why it's so important that Rogan talks to these people and does that. So, Colin traveled over 1,000 miles in that time. So a long ass way. I think he said that it worked out to somewhere like 20 miles a day. I'm not sure, but I mean, that's a marathon a day, even though it is walking, like he's obviously not running, but I mean, he's having to drag that sled, and, you know, sometimes the snow is probably real tough to get through, and it's quite amazing that anyone can move that much that long. I think he said he was eating somewhere in the range of like 7,000 calories or something like that. And he had these custom energy bars made for him that allowed him to kind of get through that whole challenge and keep himself focused. But some of the really interesting parts of their conversation that got me, and the big takeaway that I enjoyed from it is when he was talking not so much about the challenges of the trip in Antarctica, which obviously were incredibly difficult, like the freezing temperatures, that on the last day he went like something like 70 miles straight, and some of the issues he had with putting a tent up in a blizzard, and that at times it was like negative 80. But it was really the story that started it all. And I think that's the key behind these super motivating people, whether it be like David Goggins or Jocko Willink, or, it's like what turned the switch on. And for Colin, it seems like it was when he got burnt in Thailand. He was giving up hope. And even though his mother was very sad and upset about what happened, every time she entered his hospital room, she'd be positive. And she was giving him ideas for goals that he could make, and it didn't matter how silly the goal was, how exorbitant, like whether it was climb up a mountain or break a world record or whatever. She would sit there and start researching it with him, and then before you know it, he was able to go off and start training for all these different things. And who's to know what really helped him get over the massive burns that he had? Maybe he was just lucky, and the burns healed up in a way that the doctors didn't expect, and that's how he was able to do things. But maybe also it was possible that because he was able to keep such a positive mindset through it all, and set these determinations like, I will do this and I will do that challenge, it like forced his body to kind of heal up and get him to a position where he could do it. The really cool part of the story was with the Chicago Triathlon. They leave at all different times. So when you finish, you don't always know what position you were in. So he did the triathlon, which is like the swimming, biking, and running, basically like an Ironman. And I don't know if the distances are all the same. I'm not really sure what it is. But he got done, and he was with his grandma, and he went over to one of the tables that has the sign in and said, hey, I just wanted to see where I came. And it turned out he won it, and he came first, and it was a real shock. It was his first triathlon, and he just put in that training and was able to do it. And from that point on, he was a national runner, and it really set the way for how he was training, how he pushed himself, and all these kind of world records and amazing challenges that he's been able to do since then. It's very, very impressive stuff. And it is one of those stories that just, it keeps you super motivated, It also helps that he surrounded himself with the right people. He had a trainer called Mike McCassell. And this guy is significant because he happened to have beat David Goggins' pull-up record. So David Goggins was on not that long ago on Rogan's podcast talking about his new book that has come out, and which, from what I've heard, is very good. And Goggins had a pull-up record where he did X amount of 1,000 pull-ups in however much time. It's incredibly difficult. I can't remember the numbers, but you just look it up. It doesn't even sound real, like any person could do it. Well, I guess this guy, Mike McCassell, who had been training Colin O'Brady through a lot of what he's gone through, actually beat Goggins and did it wearing a 30-pound weight vest, which is even more insane, the fact that he had a weight vest on. So, it's not just that Colin thought positively and went out and just happened to be so good that he could break all these records. He started with that and then used that to motivate himself to train, but he's also gone ahead and found all the best people to be around, which is obviously part and parcel with really getting up and doing it. But it's an incredible conversation and a really kind of moving and motivating message. So yeah, definitely check it out. And like I said, it's one of those ones where if you're in a rut or you're finding it difficult just to kind of get focused or a project or anything you got going on in your life, this is the conversation that you want to listen to out of all the ones that I've heard for quite some time. But anyway, guys, thanks for joining in and downloading. I appreciate it. Bye.